All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the show, and today we're going to talk about business goals for 2015. Kind of Travis and myself, we just got into 2015 a little bit, so we're going to list our goals here, and if we don't reach them, you guys can hold us accountable and all that jazz. So Travis, what's going on?
Well, first up, actually this Sunday, and I know you sent an email out about it, but last Sunday, I should say, we had a meetup in Los Angeles. It was really cool. It was semi last minute put together, and I think we had a total of 14 people show up. Just a blast. There was no, it was just us talking and eating some dim sum, and it was cool because we got this big round table, so everyone got to kind of talk to everybody else and met a lot of really interesting people at it.
Yeah, so the cool thing was that I believe it was you, Jerry, and Jason from the mastermind that wanted to just kind of meet up for a quick lunch, right? And then I was like, hey, wait a minute, let's just ask the whole email list if anyone else wants to go. And then we kind of had like 10 more people, a couple of DCers too, but mostly people in the e-commerce space.
It was actually just me and Jerry at first, and then I'm like, well, if I'm going to be driving down there, let's get Jason in, and then it snowballed from there, and it was just so cool.
Yeah, so what was it like seeing everyone? Because you're kind of new to podcasting. Was everyone like, wow, this is like Travis? Or what was that like for you?
There was a little bit of it, but I kind of don't buy into it just because I know I'm not a big deal. So like there was at one point someone that knew me from the DC like went over and like, hey, so I'm talking to these people around here and I guess you're kind of famous. And I'm like, I know I co-host a podcast with Terry, and I think he actually knew you from the DC too. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I think the cool thing was that, so when I sent that email list out, someone in SF and I think New York asked me if there'll be meetups there. So I think moving forward, you guys are going to do this every month, right? At least in LA right now.
Absolutely every month. I'd love to do it twice a month, and I'd love to eventually have it so it's once a month, like just us getting food, just hanging out, and then 2 weeks later or whatever, like halfway through the month, doing some kind of thing where we get someone to come and speak. But that's in the future. That's something down the road. No matter what, though, once a month, I'd like to meet up with everybody and grab some food somewhere.
Yeah, what was cool is that when I went to one of these events myself the first time in like 2012, it was like, God, finally there's people that understand where I'm coming from. And I think that was the biggest thing, rather than getting some takeaway. It was just like finding people that believed in what I believed in.
Absolutely. I've said it 100 times on here, but there's so many times that I want to talk about this kind of stuff with my friends. The first time I got a virtual assistant, I could not stop talking about it. My friends were seriously like, you need to shut up. And they actually told me that. Where when I tell that to people that are in the e-commerce space, they're like, that's so cool. They want to talk about it too. So there's something to be said about just having these conversations with other like-minded people.
Yeah, so actually one of our goals this year is to have this in different cities, but we'll get into that later in this episode. So you got to stick around for the plan for that and how you can join a future meetup every month moving forward. But right now you guys are going to do every first Sunday of every month.
Every first Sunday. That's right. And I'm not sure if we're going to stick with the same location. I'm going to talk with the group, see if we maybe want to go somewhere different, but every Sunday for sure. And we have a Facebook group too. So you can email me or search it. The name is escaping me right now, but email me, travis@buildmyonlinestore.com, and I'll send you an invite to the Facebook group.
All right. So Travis, number one, you're first. You had passive income. Ooh, this word kind of gives me the chills, but what did you mean by this?
I mean, obviously there's a lot of different definitions. My feeling on passive is this idea that I don't need to work every day, that I can take a day off if I don't feel well, or kind of relax a little bit if I need to. And there's kind of a loose definition around it, but my number is $200 a day. And truthfully, I'm on track to do it for February, the month of February. And I'd like $300 a month starting the month of November. So we'll see how that goes, but that's my big goal. $300 a day for the month of November. But yeah, it's pre-tax, but it's like take home money. So maybe some of that money I do reinvest in the business, but the idea is, so basically $600 a day profit for the business. That way, half of it for my mom, half of it for me. And if we decide of that $600 a day profit, we reinvest 50%, I'm fine with that, because at the end of the day, the business is a valuable thing that we could sell down the line if we needed to.
Yeah, and there was a discussion in the DC about this. I don't know if you saw that thread. They were talking about, it was an investing thread, And there was some argument where people were saying, do you reinvest in your business or do you take money off the table and like buy a house? And it was a pretty interesting perspective because I think some of the older guys were like, yes, you must take money off the table because otherwise like your work is never going to end if you don't take money off the table.
We actually kind of earlier this year, we had a similar realization because I was spending a ton of money on PPC and just all kinds of different things. And I decided, let's just stick with the most profitable of the PPC, scale back a little bit. Let's raise some of our prices and add shipping prices. And if it hurts sales a little bit, that's okay, but our profit's higher. And the whole reason I was doing that is so instead of reinvesting in the business, it's like this idea of I need to take a little bit home.
Yeah, and so on the counter side, I think Ian from Tropical MBA was saying, look, when you invest $1 in inventory, you're probably getting, 50 cents back, right? So what else can you invest in that can give you a better ROI too? If you think of like inventory as a stock purchase,
yeah,
which does make sense too, because then do you really buy a house? But I think what that doesn't consider is that the time to make the inventory and to generate that sale into cash rather than something like a stock that pays you dividend or a house where you collect rental income. There's some effort that's not kind of calculated into that too.
And I 100% agree with that, but we were really pretty much doing 100% reinvestment in the business. I think maybe we'd pay ourselves like $1,200 or enough just to feel like we weren't totally wasting our time, but it was pretty much 100% reinvestment in the business. So it would be nice to not be losing money every month, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's no right answer for this since everyone's business is at a different stage, but certainly you do want to pay yourself because why are we doing this if we're not paying ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. Very true.
All right, so I guess number 2 is me, brand consolidation. So like I said earlier in the last episode, I'm going to move all the product brands under this new one called Downing Leather. So Downing, this name, I don't know if I told you, but I wrote out a whole list of like 5 pages of just possible names.
Wow.
Oh, so I was actually reading Richard Branson's book, Losing My Virginia. I was a lot of cool names here, like where he had his studio, where he has his student records. So I just Googled like, hey, what are some famous streets in London? And so there was like Abbey Road, Downing Street, like something Mulberry thing, something like that, whatever. And then Downing sounded pretty cool. So me and my roommate kind of hashed that out. We're like, hey, Downing sounds like a kind of legit, kind of upscale brand that's, not too snobby, but it has a cool ring to it. So that's what we're going to go with. And then so once the wallets sell out, whenever they do, I'm just going to get a new stamp on it and then just roll it out under this name.
I like it. Yeah, no, that's a really cool name. And I think that actually answers a lot of my questions I was going to ask you is how you came up with it.
So Downing Street is actually where the Prime Minister lives. They live on an apartment called 10 Downing Street. And it's basically like this block in London. It's like the White House of England, basically. And if anyone is British and listening to this and I'm butchering this, please let me know. So yeah, basically we're taking the ideas of that kind of like an upscale, proper type of thing, and we're going to apply this to leather stuff.
So at what point are you planning on moving everything over, or is it like a process that's currently being undertaken?
Yeah, it's ongoing, but I think once the Kickstarter is done, whenever that is, and then that rolls into the main site, then everything will be wrapped under there.
In the laptop, it's a laptop sleeve. Is that
Yeah, it's a laptop sleeve.
And that's going to be branded as Downing Leather, or that's something different?
Yeah, that'll be branded under Downing Leather, and then whenever that campaign's done, we'll roll the wallets into that too.
Gotcha. And are you going to use? You showed me a logo. How is that coming along?
It still has to do some work. So did I show you the one with the lion or?
Yeah.
So I thought that
was cool.
Yeah, so the lion, if you look at 10 Downing Street, which is where the Prime Minister lives, they actually have a door knocker. That's just like brass lion on a black door. It's actually really cool. It looks like a really badass lion. And so we're basically taking that, but we're putting it on a shield, kind of reinventing that into something.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw the logo and I thought that was really cool. I didn't realize it tied into the whole Downing Street thing as well.
All right, so number 3, let's move on before we get into too many details here. Number 3, finance management for you.
Yep. So one of the big things, and I've talked about this a lot in the last couple episodes, is that I really need to get my finances in order. And it's just kind of been a growing problem. And the biggest reason I want to really take care of this, there's actually many different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is so I know what the actual profit is month to month. We kind of just guess every month, like we think it's about this, and there's no real science to it. So that's one of the big reasons I want to get it down. The second one is to know where I'm spending money, because maybe I'm spending money in the wrong places. I don't know.
Well, it's also key if you want to pay yourself $300 a day passively.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, because I mean, right now we're just paying ourselves enough to survive basically, and hoping that that doesn't put us in the red. But and so far it looks good, but we don't have the exact numbers down. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you probably could pay yourself say 200 a day, but you don't know if that's actually money's actually cash flow's actually.
Yeah, we've completely approximated what our percentages are of profit, and I think they're fairly accurate. But I don't want to be fairly accurate. I want to treat this like a business and actually get the numbers down.
Yeah, there was a guest I had, Brendan Tully, who has a site, Pareto e-commerce. He was like basically saying, look, like if you're serious, you need to be able to produce a P&L sheet like instantly of your business. Otherwise, you're just kind of moping around, which actually, admit it, I am doing that too. But I mean, it makes sense though.
It's easier with some businesses than it is with others. And I think a lot of people listening to this might be like, oh, how do you not know your exact profits? Well, we have people that are producing our stuff, and it might take them 5 minutes one day to do it, and it might take them 10 minutes the next day to do it. That comes out of our pocket. There's a lot of room for error. They might accidentally cut one thing by accident and have to throw that fabric away or blah, blah, blah. And every month we can get an approximation. And I think it's trying to get as close as possible without wasting a ton of effort, if that makes sense.
Do you guys pay for materials as you go, basically, or do you buy like a bulk material and then
both? We sometimes, there's certain fabrics we'll buy the entire roll, which is a little bit cheaper. And there's certain fabrics where we just buy as we need it because we're still a young company and we don't have a lot of money just to buy stuff unless we know for sure it's going to sell.
Yeah, there's like a catch-22 there because you don't really know what, and then if your order flows to like say 100K, then the dynamics of the sourcing change too, right?
That's true too. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot. I think the amount of money that we save, because right now we're going through a middleman, but the amount of money we'd save going direct is pretty small unless we're buying a ton of bolts of fabric. So that's something we'll look in the future, but I don't know what that point is, and that's something I should probably learn more about.
Yeah, one thing with agents I've realized is that if you have different products you need to source, like if you want to go direct, you need to find all these factories, do all these calls, have all these relationships, whereas like an agent kind of can just deal it for you, and they have their value at, even though it's a cut, but it's probably worth the time of you doing that than like calling all these people, emailing all these people, and figuring out all these POs.
And I think it'll be different too when we have a better grasp of exactly what fabrics are selling. Because I mean, for instance, our blacks, our whites, certain base colors, we probably could buy those in bulk and get a little bit of a discount. But the other side of that is, since we are still a new company, we don't want to have $100,000 worth of product or materials laying around. That's just not something we can float right now.
Yeah, because the cash flow, you could probably better deploy it somewhere else too.
Absolutely.
Cool. And so I guess if you're going to nail your finances down, what's the first step you're going to take? Are you going to get like a bookkeeper, or what's the plan?
My plan is I signed up for Xero, and I still don't know if it's the best choice for me, but it seems pretty easy. It seems like QuickBooks might have been cheaper, and but I don't know. Xero seems like it's really friendly to use. So my plan is for the year of 2014, go through and do all of it myself, and then starting for 2015, this month, I'm gonna hire someone off a website to be my bookkeeper.
All right, so number 4, for me, it's content strategy. So I think last year I didn't really figure this out for Ball of Leather, and I think this year now I know it's got to be the featuring customers like the way you've done, because I've seen it work for you, and I also saw it worked really well for Taylor Swift. So I don't know if you saw that video I sent you. So basically, she throughout the year she's been like stalking people that follow her on like Twitter, Tumblr, whatever, and then she would left like an emoji of a Santa face on them, and then what she did was she sent them Christmas presents, like without telling them during Christmas, and she would like write them like huge cards, like, hey, congrats on your graduation, hope this is going well. I saw you got into this new school, blah blah blah. Right? Like really really personalized stuff, kind of like what you were doing, featuring your customers, right? And I think one of the cool ones she did was she did like a surprise visit to this mom and her son or something like that, and I think it's like it was not about her. It was all about the people she gave gifts to. And then obviously, they're going to go crazy because they're going to tell all their friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all their families like forever, right? Like anyone that goes in their house, like, oh my God, look at this. This is a gift from Taylor Swift, even though I don't know any song she sings. But it was a really cool example of how, you feature your customers, things like that too. So I was thinking about, for Downing Leather, how would we do this? Would we do like a lifestyle guide, where to shop, and then you would feature boutiques that would sell your
So
stuff?
yeah, it could be a couple different things. When I was doing it, my big thought process is if I only had 1,000 people that could buy from me, or you could even scale it back and like if there's only 10 people that like I could push a button and they'd be my customer, who would those 10 people be? And then like so maybe for you it'd be Jay-Z or someone crazy like that. Scale it down a little bit. So maybe it would be people that do blogs about fashion or whatever, and yeah, it could also be boutique places too, things like that. And I don't have an exact answer for you, but it's like, who is your ideal customer? And so maybe boutiques would be good for you because at the end of the day, if you can get a boutique to buy your stuff from you, that'd be huge.
Yeah, so you would be like a men's shopping guide, and then you would feature different boutiques.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would tell them, hey, I put you in my shopping guide for LA or SF.
Yeah, I'm still a big fan of the interview type format, or some. It doesn't even have to be an interview, but like a featured thing that they would feel like they want a link from their page back to your page, because that way people would come to their boutique website and be like, oh, they've also been featured in your blog, and as long as you make your blog look professional, it's like, wow, this boutique's pretty legit,
So it's like, hey, we like to feature a boutique list. Can you send us these 5 questions, answers about your store, and some photos, and then we'll let you know when it's live, basically like that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in certain markets you might need to call. I'm lucky because there's so many dance studios that I can do it over email, and the ones that don't respond, there's so many that will respond that it's not even a problem. But worst case scenario, pick up the phone and call them, and I guarantee you'll get a ton of people.
Yeah, there was someone in the DC that said they had an autoresponder built into their post-purchase sequence where they would ask customers, hey, how's your product going? I know it's been 2 weeks, so I want to see how it's going. And by the way, since you've bought from us, thank you. Is there anywhere that you shop locally that we can kind of get in touch with to kind of help us out and get our product in there too? And they would basically crowdsource a list of boutiques or like local B2B stuff.
That's interesting.
So I don't know if you can do that. You can probably do that too. Like, hey, where do you buy? Or what dance? Yeah, exactly. Like, we're looking to feature dance studios. Where do you go to? And then you can kind of like make the snowball get bigger and bigger too.
And it's funny you brought this up because quick shout out to Scott Denton's. Apologies if I butchered the name, but he has a site called Dentavid, and I was talking back and forth with him, and I'm like, an idea for you, and I know he listens to the podcast, so I was like, I apologize if you've already thought about this and there's a reason you don't want to do it, but I'm like, you should think about having a blog where you feature pediatric dentists. And he's like, oh my God, you're right. I've heard you talk about this on the podcast, but I never put 2 and 2 together. And I think with a lot of businesses, there's that potential. Not all. There's businesses where it just doesn't make sense, but I think a lot of businesses that's just free content for you and hopefully backlinks.
And I think the point is that you're not, the content creation isn't like, say, write a 2,000 word article that's epic, right? Because that's really hard to do every week. You're just saying, hey, let's just talk to this guy. And the thing is, like, they have the right traffic you're trying to get to also. You don't have to like make the article and then blast it on all your channels and hope people share it too.
You're really just for me at least, I take their answers, manipulate them a little bit, and I get people that write 1,500 words back to me. I usually ask about 7 questions, and you can keep them pretty open-ended. I'm like, tell me about your dance studio in a minute or less. Like what made you start a dance studio? Things like that, and people will talk a lot about themselves usually.
Yeah, because the spotlight's not on you, right? And I think it's great is you just ask them. You can take the same questions and do it to different people, and it's not like writing, oh, what do I write about? What do I write, like 10 tips? Or like, I hate doing that. So I think that's why I failed earlier last year trying to figure out this content, because I think it's easy to think too hard about it when people tell you to write content, but actually this method makes a lot more sense in terms of like impact, time, resources involved, and all that stuff too.
Another thing for you, and I know I talked about this before, but like a top 10 boutiques, you could do an article like that. I told you I did my top 50 dance studios. 20,000 people over, I think, 2 or 3 days went to my blog. It's an insane like virality just from doing a top 50,
Yeah, and you could do it by the city too, like top 10 in New York, top 10 in LA, top 10 in SF, and you can just replicate this, like top 10 in Singapore, top 10 in Tokyo, and all that stuff too.
And then the good thing with that is for SEO juice, if someone says boutique in Los Angeles, it's like, oh, here's the top 5. Yours is likely to come up because it's been shared so many times. There's already links to it. So definitely a good idea.
So number 5, improved margins and efficiency.
For this one in particular, what I really want to do is get my margins to about 50%. And what I mean by that is if we have $50,000 in revenue, then $25,000 in profit. And I really enjoy marketing. I really love it. Like if I could do one thing for the rest of my life, it would probably be marketing. Now, dealing with production is not one of my favorite things to do, but I find that I'm decently good at it because I'm all about efficiency and systemizing things. So by the end of this year, I'm hoping to get it to the point where it's so efficient that we can have 50% margins.
Yeah, I feel like production. Personally, for me, I like production more because that stuff is like more kind of concrete. I guess for marketing, kind of you have to like see what works, see what doesn't, and it's like a more iterative cycle. I guess production is the same way, but I feel like it's when you see something in front of you, it's easier to do than numbers. I guess, but I don't know, everyone has their different ways to see things.
You know, the thing I like about marketing is that if you have a really cool, unique idea, good for you. Like it works and it's going to solve the problem. But with production, I feel like it's a little more analytical at times, which I'm good at, but sometimes I don't like sitting there constantly thinking like, how can we improve this? How can we measure this? And I think the other part of it is I'd enjoy it more if my money wasn't tied to it. And I know that there's places in Los Angeles that produce the same kind of things we do for $4, and that's not including the cost of materials. So if they can do it for $4 and we would sell that same kind of item for $30, there's ways that we can do it. We just need to figure out how to be more efficient about it.
Yeah. So where do you think you can squeeze right now? For is it like in the materials and the labor, or kind of like process production?
A lot of different things. Yeah, there's a lot of things I've thought about. And one of the big ones I was working on this last couple of weeks was the organizational systems. And I talked about it in one of the episodes, how we were handwriting a lot of things. Well, now I have programs that are doing it. But my goal is to actually write even better programs, because right now we have it so you kind of copy and paste different orders into the sheet and it'll auto paste out basically what we use to actually make the production. But what would be great is if I could just connect to the API and connect to my website and it just all is 100% automated. And there's lots of things like that where I'd like it to be 100% automated, but specifically with the production, there's a couple different things that I'd like to do. One of them is we just go to a factory and see what they're doing different than us would be huge, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah, in terms of like the actual production, because you've never seen a real production line outside of your living room in the facility.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that we could do, and the problem is a lot of them are expensive to implement. And one of the things specifically is you don't pay people per action they do, but basically you keep track of what people do. So if someone cuts a pair of capris, for instance, they mark it on their sheet. And what I heard is there's this ticket system where they get stickers and they take the sticker and they put that I cut this capri for this order. And what happens is they get paid more if they do more stuff. So it's each action's worth, let's say, $1 or whatever it is. And if at the end of a week they did $600 worth of actions, they make $600. If they did only 300, they still get paid their salary. But if we see it time and time again that they're underperforming, then we know, hey, we need to get someone better in there. So that'd be one thing that we would do for sure.
But it also has to depend on the quality too, right? Like if you cut 600 really fast, but half of them suck.
Yeah, no, I mean, so there's a quality minimum if you do it without quality, and that's another system. The way that the people in Los Angeles do it is not quite legal, and they'll actually make the people fix it in their off time, like make them off the clock. The way we would do it is say, you're allowed this many errors, and past that, we'll dock it from the pay, not dock it from the pay, but we'll not pay you extra if you mess up or something. There's ways to fix it.
Like not penalizing, but just rewarding less.
Exactly. And there was a really cool TED talk about how certain kinds of tasks, monetary rewards for doing better, work really well. And they don't work really well for creative thinking, but they work really well for physical labor. And what we're doing, it's 100% physical stuff. We don't need people that are there to think. We need people there to produce.
Because it's hard to think better. Like it's a very abstract concept, right? Like think smarter. Well, how, right? Or like think faster.
The problem is when money's on the line, according to this TED Talk, then you get really focused. And being focused doesn't lead to creative thought. It leads to focused thought. So if your goal is to take 100 books from this side of the table and put them on this side of the table or whatever, then, and I say, I'm going to give you $100 if you do it faster than this guy. Yeah, you'll do it faster than that guy. But if I say, here's this abstract problem, I'll give you $100 to the person that does it the best, the fastest. Our brains just aren't wired that way. It's a really interesting talk.
Yeah. Whereas if it's something repetitive or at least kind of more concrete you can see in front of you. It does like some like you can flip this faster, cut it this angle faster, use this scissor that cuts smoother, things like that. Or
Exactly. You'll get it done because you also get more energy. I mean, imagine if someone asked you, "Hey, can you help me move?" And you're probably going to kind of go about it lazy, but they say, "Hey, if you move me out in 2 hours, I'll give you $1,000." You'll move them out in 2 hours. You know, I mean, that's a weird example, but
like if you help me move in 3 hours, I'll give you 1,000. But if you help me move in 2 hours, I'll give you 2,000 or something.
Yeah, and if it's over 4 hours, you get nothing.
Then you're like, hell yeah, let's move right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So number 6, me build my online store meetups in 5 cities. So this one kind of goes up to the update we talked about earlier. Since you guys are going to do LA and people were asking me about SF, New York, I was like, hey, why don't we just do this in different cities? Because I did a quick meetup in Singapore once earlier April last year with like 2 people. It was kind of cool, but it wasn't like that big as the LA one. But this year I've gotten probably 6 or 7 emails from folks in Singapore. So I'll reach out to you guys again later on. But basically, every first Sunday of every month, if we can do it in 5 cities consistently, off the top of my head, London, San Francisco, New York, Singapore, and London. So if you're in any of these 5 cities listening to this now and you want to meet some other listeners, shoot me an email. We can see how we can coordinate one. You guys can just meet at a cafe over lunch, something kind of downtown in a convenient place for everyone too. So, but I guess Travis, what else is a takeaway from this meetup?
Lots of good ones. Just do it. I mean, connect with the local people and email us if you're interested and you're in a big city because we can connect you with other people for sure. But actually, for anybody in Singapore, I'm going to be around there like towards the end of February. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to the first Sunday. So if you're in Singapore, email me. I'd love to collaborate a meetup there.
Yeah, and these meetups aren't that formal. It's just like you guys find a cafe, we'll decide on a date and time, and then you give me your host if you want to host it. And then I'll email my whole list and be like, hey, here are the events in each city. If you can go, let me know. And then I can link you guys up in a separate email, like everyone in Singapore, everyone in LA, everyone in San Francisco, things like that. So I think this is kind of cool to get people to meet each other and kind of grow this community bigger than just me and you talking into a microphone.
Yeah, actually one big takeaway is be a leader. Step up. There's so many people out there that want to connect, but the problem is everybody else wants someone else to do it. And really leading one of these kind of meetups is no work. And the cool thing is if you're the one that's leading it, everyone knows you and you kind of have like a good relationship with everybody. It's a really cool feeling to bring together, in my case, 14 people. So if you're in one of these cities or even in a different city, volunteer to host it. It's all you do is send out an email telling everybody where's the most convenient place for you or where you want to go for food, and you'll meet a lot of cool people doing it.
Yeah, actually just make it even easier. Just email me if you want to host one. If you're in LA, San Francisco, New York, Singapore, London, find a place that's convenient, you think, in your city, because I don't really know everywhere, and then let me know your details, and then I'll send the rest, and I'll let you know who's going, and basically that's it. So you just have to raise your hand, and then we can kind of get this going, and it should be pretty cool, because I think these things where, like my friend John says about engineering serendipity, and you kind of do this by meeting people, putting yourself out there, and you can sit at home listen to this by yourself, but what is that going to do if you don't meet other people too down the line?
Absolutely. You never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I've told this story before, but it kind of brings me back to when I decided to join the mastermind with you. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea, blah, blah, blah. And now look at it. It's completely changed the course of my life. Now I'm hosting a podcast and doing all this other stuff. So meet some people, have a real conversation, be social.
Exactly. And you met 12 people you never met before in LA, which was just kind of crazy too, because no one there met each other before. It was like the first time. I mean, you had calls with like Jerry and Jason before, right? But like
just Jerry, actually. Even Jason. I mean, we talked on Skype, and it's cooler to meet people that you've talked on. I've talked online to these people over and over again, and then to actually get to shake their hand. Shout out to Jerry. It was really cool meeting both you guys, Jason and Jerry.
So hopefully we can get this going. 5 cities this year, if not more. So once again, if you're in London, Singapore, New York, San Francisco, LA, shoot us an email and let's do that. All right, so with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode, and we'll catch up with you guys next week.
Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Build My Online Store podcast. If you want the show notes, make sure to check out the website at buildmyonlinestore.com. And if you got an e-commerce store, every 2 weeks I lead a live mastermind call with about 5 or 6 of the listeners in 2 separate groups where we work openly together and solve a business problem that you have. And we're all there to support each other. So if this sounds like a cup of tea, make sure to check us out at buildmyonlinestore.com/mastermind. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch up with you guys next week.